Hey everybody! So, huge win for Georgia Tech yesterday in a week where the Jackets did not actually play any football games. So we're going into the weekend, we had, a ton of games that we were kind of looking at as far as tiebreaker scenarios, and some very key pieces fell into place, such as Virginia losing to Wake Forest and Louisville losing to Cal. Going into the weekend, me and my buddy Rec Talk had been looking at, we've been looking at the tiebreakers for the past few weeks, studying them and the system and how they work, because we kind of saw that this would come in, maybe be a complicated situation going into, the conference championship week with the ACC. We thought there might be a bunch of one-inch teams, and we didn't think Georgia Tech was going to go undefeated in conference play. We thought that, it's very typical of the Jackets to, lose a game that they're really not supposed to. The thing is, with the ACC, every single team has lost games that they're technically not supposed to, or wish they would have back. And some key pieces fell into place for us. Going into the weekend, we thought that the Clemson and Florida State game might be important, because when you look at the tiebreakers, we were going to have potentially several one-loss teams at the end of the year that Georgia Tech would be going up against. Namely, it would be Georgia Tech, Virginia, SMU, and Louisville. And Duke even was kind of in the mix. Now, Pittsburgh has only one ACC loss. For the remainder of this video, I'm just going to assume that Georgia Tech is going to beat Pittsburgh, because obviously if Georgia Tech loses to Pittsburgh, then they're out of the ACC title game contention at all. So it's assumed that, I'm going to be assuming that we're beating them when I'm talking about that. So those were the teams that, were possibly in contention for it. And the thing is, Louisville being in contention also with one loss really throw things off for the Jackets, because they don't have a common opponent. Now, the tiebreakers go in such order. One of the first couple is looking at, you take all the group teams that have one loss, or however many losses they have, if they're undefeated, whatever it is. You look at common opponents, and if they all have a common opponent, every single team has to be played in that group for them to look at it. And if all of them play that team, anyone who's lost to that team is automatically out. Now, Louisville being in the mix meant that of all the teams that were in the running, we didn't have a common opponent with them. So then it kicks down to strength of record, which we were in trouble in that scenario, because Georgia Tech has one of the lowest strength of records, almost as low as Virginia. They're like neck and neck with Virginia, right? The thing is, we were looking at this Clemson and Florida State game saying, if Clemson beats Florida State, that favors Georgia Tech, because that would be a team that, Georgia Tech has beat, that's on their schedule, beating a team that's on Louisville's schedule and Virginia's schedule. It would help our strength of record over those teams and maybe kind of help us out if Louisville's in the running at the end of the year. And of course, they're freaking not. They lost to Cal at home. Crazy last night, which, look, I maybe could understand losing to Cal if you're traveling, to Cal. I mean, it's across the entire country, you gotta drop everything and go across the country. Your body clock's all wrong. But no, Louisville hosted Cal at home and got beat by Cal. That's really humiliating. That's really bad. I can't believe freaking Louisville dropped that game. I don't know how it happened, but it is really the single biggest domino to fall for Georgia Tech here, that Louisville is now out of the running, because now the situation this creates is that Louisville is not in the running for the ACC title anymore, which means, as far as one-loss teams go, which means every team that's left in the running for the ACC title, Virginia, Duke, Georgia Tech, I'm not going to count Pittsburgh, remember what I said earlier, Duke, I said Duke already, SMU. Those teams have all played, can you guess? Wake Forest. Wake Forest, of course, is the common opponent between all of the teams that are left. And guess what? Georgia Tech beat them, and SMU and now Virginia has lost to them. And Duke is yet to play them, but it doesn't matter if they win or lose. Georgia Tech will still be in over SMU and Virginia because Wake Forest has beat them both. So the combination of Louisville being out and Wake Forest beating Virginia last night was the absolute perfect thing that could have happened for Georgia Tech, and results in Georgia Tech now being in control of their own destiny in the ACC. That's right. Win out, and we're in. And I couldn't be happier. I got to give thanks to Wake Forest. Ever since Georgia Tech lost or almost lost to Wake Forest by the skin of their freaking nutsack in week 5 or whatever it was, I do the ACC show on Pigskin Pete's channel every Tuesday night for the past 4 years. We've been doing that show. Y'all be sure to check it out. Pigskin Pete, he's a Clemson fan. We do the ACC show, and I come on, and they were giving me crap about almost losing to Wake Forest, and it was almost a running joke that I have been carrying water for Wake Forest, saying they're like actually a good team because they took Georgia Tech to the wire. I mean, what other conclusion can I come to? They took my Jackets down to the wire, almost beat us. They must be good. They never wanted to admit it. I kept picking Wake Forest to win every game. They kept winning. They kept doing it. Slim Shady Canes, I pretty much own him by now. He made, when they played SMU, he was like, oh, SMU is going to win this easily. They're going to cover the spread, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you're crazy. Wake Forest has got this. My Demon Deacons are coming in clutch for us. And Wake Forest just kept winning for me. And look, last night was really the nail in the coffin for him. Look at this. This is our pick'ems that I do with my friends. I stood on business with this Wake Forest pick here. You can see it. Wake Forest, Virginia at the top. C-Dog Morgan on top with the Wake Forest pick. Everybody else picked Virginia. So, obviously, I freaking stood on business with my Wake Forest fandom. And look, I've been carrying water for them. I've been cheering for them all year ever since we beat them. And now it's time to retire my cheering for Wake Forest because they've done their job. Thanks to their actions and the two teams that they beat being Virginia and SMU, it doesn't matter anything else. Georgia Tech wins and we're in because we have that tiebreaker. We have the advantage over Virginia now and over SMU. Not to mention that, they gave Virginia their first ACC loss, which knocked them out of being undefeated. So that's just another cherry on top for that. So really couldn't have been any more perfect for Georgia Tech last night. So look, all we got to do now is win out, and we're in. It's we're kind of getting a mulligan. Obviously, last week, the last time we played, we went on the road to NC State and really laid a real turd, laid an egg, freaking had a really bad game, and now, thanks to this a little bit of ACC chaos here, Jackets are back in the driver's seat. Just after 1 week, I mean, it was no sooner we're sitting at home and the ACC takes care of itself for us. Now, this was a horrible. Oh no, this is a horrible look for the ACC. Really, everybody was saying, "Oh wow," even myself, like the committee got it wrong, ranking the ACC team so low, and a lot of the detractors of the ACC were like, "No, they're terrible teams. They all suck." Well, the ACC haters really got a feather in their cap here with this past weekend because ACC is cannibalizing itself really bad. We're looking like we're going to be a one-bid league into the playoff, and it's whoever wins the ACC because they have an automatic bid. So, and look, I'm not saying the committee was right, dude. First of all, the committee was wrong. They way overrated Notre Dame, and you can't, and at that point in the season, ranking them that low is just ridiculous. Like, you can't rank things based on what you think will happen. You can't rank them low and then they lose and you say, see, they did belong there. No, you got to rank them based on what they had achieved up to that point, and if they lose, then you can drop them however much you want, based on what you think. But, like, come on, ranking them at 14 and 15 was unnecessary, my point, but that doesn't matter to a lot of people. It doesn't matter at all. Really, what the moral of the story here is that the ACC is freaking not taken seriously as a major conference, and maybe it's for a good reason, honestly. So, I don't know. It was a bad day for the ACC, but it was a great day for Georgia Tech. I don't care. Look, if this is the most horrible conference in the country, I don't care. I want to win it. I want an ACC championship trophy. I want a freaking merch that I can wear. I'll wear it every day. I'll get an ACC champion shirt and hoodie and hat, and I'll freaking wear them all the time. I'm going to be so stoked that my Jackets win a conference championship. It's been a long time, and we're due for one, and it's wide open this year, and it's in our grasp. All we got to do going forward is beating Boston College, which I'm not scared of Boston College in the least. They're like 1-9 right now. They're the worst team in the ACC, possibly in the entire country. And so I'm not scared of them. And then, of course, we got to Pitt at home. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, I think we beat Pitt at home too. I know that they're scary. I know we got really exposed, against NC State. Our defense did. But look, I'll talk more about the Pitt game when it comes up. But this is going to be the seniors' last game at home, Haynes King's last game at home. Well, barring a home playoff game. But this is our last guaranteed game at Bobby Dodd for Haynes King and the other seniors. I think they're going to be turned up. I think that they're going to be playing their asses off, and it's going to be one for the books. And we're going to punch our ticket to the ACC Championship here. I also want to give a special shout out to Dennis. I was on the Rec Talk channel last night. He was streaming the Wake Forest and Virginia game because of obviously the huge implications it had for the ACC title race. And this guy in the comment section, Dennis, he sent a link to a website that has all the ACC tiebreakers, and it explains all of the you can punch in all the games that are left to play. You can punch in who you think's going to win or what scenario you'd want to see, and you can calculate it, and it will give you the standings of the ACC, and it will tell you why a certain team is ranked above or below another team. And given I'll put the link. I'll put the link here, and I'll put it in the description. It should be on your screen right now. Go to the website, have Georgia Tech winning out, and see if you can find a scenario where they win out and don't make the ACC title game. But you won't be able to. It's not possible because of the Wake Forest. Thanks to Wake Forest. So looks like I was right about Wake Forest. Looks like the Diva Deacons carried their weight as one of the few teams that actually is good and delivered on our schedule. So thank you to Wake Forest for handling that. Thank you to Cal for knocking Louisville out, another major domino that needed to fall. And this is huge, guys. So I want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Go Jackets, and I'll see y'all next time.